It was an ordinary Tuesday morning when I received the call. I was sitting at my desk, sipping on my coffee, preparing for another busy day at work. But then my phone rang, and I glanced at the screen to see an unfamiliar number. I almost ignored it, thinking it was another telemarketer or a wrong number, but something made me pick it up. "Hello, is this Emma?" the voice on the other end asked. "Yes, this is Emma," I replied, confused. "This is John from Bank Name, and I'm calling in regard to the loan application we have for you. I just wanted to verify the details for the $390,000 loan you've taken out. Are you available to discuss the terms?" I froze. A $390,000 loan? I had no idea what this was about. My mind raced, trying to make sense of what I was hearing. I had no recollection of applying for such a massive loan, and I was certain I hadn't signed anything related to it. "Wait, what loan are you talking about?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "I didn't apply for any loan." The voice on the other end was patient, almost too calm. "It seems that a loan has been processed in your name, and we just need to verify the information with you. Could you confirm your address and the amount?" I couldn't believe it. $390,000. That wasn't just a loan, it was a small fortune. I quickly ran through my bank statements and credit reports in my mind, but nothing showed up. My heart was pounding now. "I think you've made a mistake," I said, my voice shaky. "I didn't apply for any loan. There must be some confusion." There was a long pause on the other end, and then the bank representative spoke again, his tone shifting slightly. "I understand this is a lot to process, Emma, but I assure you that the loan is registered under your name. I suggest you speak with the loan officer directly. They can give you more details about it." I hung up the phone, still in shock. A loan in my name? $390,000? I had no idea what was going on, but I could feel the panic starting to set in. My mind immediately went to my parents. Over the years, they had been financially irresponsible, relying on me to bail them out in several situations. Could they have done something this extreme without telling me? Was it possible they had used my name without my consent? I took a deep breath and pulled out my phone. I had to call them. As the phone rang, I could already feel my stomach turning in knots. When my mom finally picked up, I didn't waste time. "Mom, what's going on? The bank just called about a $390,000 loan in my name. Did you apply for this without telling me?" There was a long silence on the other end. "Oh, Emma," my mom started, her voice tense. "We've been having some financial trouble and we didn't want to worry you. Your father and I thought we could manage, but we needed a little help, and we thought it would be temporary. I'm so sorry, we should have told you." My heart sank. This was worse than I had imagined. My parents had taken out a loan in my name without my knowledge, without my consent, and now I was left holding the bag. I could feel the anger and frustration bubbling up inside me. How could they do this? Why hadn't they told me sooner? I had always tried to be there for them, always done what I could to help, but this crossed a line. A $390,000 loan wasn't something you could just manage without consequences. "Why didn't you come to me for help?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. "I could have helped, but you just decided to do this behind my back?" My mom's voice wavered as she tried to explain. "We didn't want to burden you, Emma. You've worked so hard, and we didn't want you to have to take on more, but now we're in too deep, and we don't know what to do." I sat there, my thoughts racing. This wasn't just about the money. It was about the trust that had been broken. I had been a daughter who was there for her parents, who had done everything to help them, and yet they had taken this drastic step without even considering how it would affect me. As I hung up the phone, I felt more confused and betrayed than ever. The weight of the loan, the betrayal of my trust, and the realization that my parents had crossed a line I wasn't sure I could forgive loomed over me. I needed answers, and I needed them fast. The more I thought about it, the more my mind raced. How could my parents think they could take out a loan of $390,000 in my name without consulting me? What kind of position had they put me in? I hadn't signed any paperwork, hadn't authorized anything, and yet here I was with a loan I had no part in. I sat in silence for a few moments, trying to process everything. I had to admit, A part of me was heartbroken. My parents, the people I had always looked to for guidance and support, had made a huge decision without even considering me. They had gone behind my back, and now I was left to clean up the mess they had created. I stood up from the couch and started pacing, running my hands through my hair. I had to figure out what to do. I couldn't just sit here and let this go. I wasn't going to let this mess define me, but where should I start? The first thing I knew I had to do was contact the bank. I needed details, any information I could get about this loan and how it had been taken out under my name. I wasn't going to let them drag me into this without a fight. I called the bank back, this time determined to get answers. When I spoke to the loan officer, my frustration was barely contained. "I need to know everything about this loan," I said, my voice firm. "How did this loan get approved? What steps were taken? And why was it under my name?" The loan officer was understanding, but there was still an element of bureaucracy in the way she spoke. "I understand your concern, ma'am," she said. "I'll need to verify some details before I can release any information. Please confirm your date of birth and address." After confirming the details, she explained how the loan had been processed. Apparently, my parents had used my credit to secure the loan. They had taken out a mortgage, citing financial hardship, and had listed me as a co-signer without my knowledge. They had filled out all the paperwork, using my name and social security number. They hadn't even told me until the very last moment. I was in shock. My name had been on a legal document, something I was legally responsible for, and I had no idea it had happened. As the loan officer continued talking about payment schedules and interest rates, all I could focus on was the fact that my parents had taken this massive step without involving me, without even asking for my consent. It felt like a betrayal of the highest order. When the call ended, I was left standing in my apartment, feeling as though the floor had been ripped out from under me. I had no idea how I was going to manage this. A $390,000 loan wasn't something I could just pay off easily, and now I was trapped in something I had never agreed to. I texted my parents again, this time demanding a face-to-face meeting. I needed answers, and I needed them now. They couldn't just keep avoiding me. The loan wasn't going away, and neither was the tension between us. I was tired of pretending everything was okay when it clearly wasn't. Later that day, my mom called, her voice trembling with nervousness. "Diana, we need to talk. I know this is a lot, but please understand, we thought we were doing the right thing." "Doing the right thing?" I repeated, trying to keep my calm. "How was lying to me and using my name without my knowledge the right thing? You've put me in an impossible position." She sighed deeply, and for the first time, I could hear the regret in her voice. "We were desperate, Diana. Your father and I didn't know what else to do. We thought we could make it work, and we never meant to hurt you." I didn't know what to say. Their words felt hollow, and I couldn't help but wonder if they truly understood the gravity of what they had done. They hadn't thought it through, and now their careless actions had left me in a financial nightmare. "I don't know if I can ever forgive you for this," I said quietly, the pain in my voice unmistakable. "But we'll talk more when I get home. I need to see how we can fix this." The drive to my parents' house felt like an eternity. Every passing mile felt heavier, and the closer I got, the more conflicted I became. I had always been the one to keep the peace, to try and smooth over the rough edges of our family dynamic, but this time was different. I wasn't going to sit back and let their mistakes be my problem. As I pulled into their driveway, I felt a pit form in my stomach. The house that once felt like home now seemed like a place full of lies and betrayal. I had helped them time and time again, but this was something I couldn't just let go. This wasn't a small misunderstanding. They had crossed a line, and I needed them to understand just how serious this was. I walked up to the front door, my hands shaking with a mix of anger and disbelief. I rang the doorbell, and when my mom opened the door, she looked at me with wide, guilty eyes. "Diana," she said softly, "I know this is a lot, and I'm so sorry. I just didn't know what else to do. Your father and I were scared." I stared at her for a moment, trying to collect my thoughts. "You were scared? Scared enough to put a $390,000 loan in my name without even asking me? What if something went wrong? What if I couldn't pay it off? She looked down, unable to meet my gaze. We didn't think it through, she admitted. We just needed help, and you've always been there for us. We didn't want to burden you. My dad had been sitting quietly in the living room, watching the exchange. He stood up now, his face lined with worry. Diana, I know we've messed up. We should have talked to you. We should have asked for your help, but we didn't think it would get this far. We'll do whatever we can to make things right. I looked at him, feeling a little less anger and a little more understanding. I knew they were sorry, but it didn't change the fact that this had turned my life upside down. They were asking for forgiveness, but I wasn't sure I could offer it just yet, not after everything that had happened. You need to be prepared to make things right, and I need to make sure this loan doesn't ruin my life, I said, my voice firm. I'm going to take some time to figure this out, but I can't keep putting myself in a position where I have to save you every time you make a bad decision. My parents both nodded, a look of shame on their faces. We understand, Diana, my dad said. We'll do whatever it takes to make it right. I stood there for a moment, my heart heavy with conflicting emotions. I didn't know if I could ever fully trust them again, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to let their mistakes ruin my future. I would take control of the situation, and I would make sure I came out stronger on the other side. As I left their house, I felt a sense of clarity. This wasn't just about the money. This was about taking control of my life and refusing to let anyone dictate my future. I wasn't going to let my parents' actions define me. I would rebuild, and I would protect what I had worked so hard to achieve. The next few days were a whirlwind of phone calls, meetings, and endless paperwork. I had to act fast. The loan wasn't just a financial burden, it was a ticking time bomb, and if I didn't do something about it quickly, it could ruin everything I had worked for. I started by contacting a lawyer who specialized in financial disputes. He told me that I had a strong case to have the loan rescinded, but it would take time and effort. The first step was proving that I had not consented to the loan, which wasn't going to be easy, but it wasn't impossible either. My mom and dad had forged my signature, and I had the evidence to back it up. Still, I couldn't help but feel the weight of it all. This wasn't just a legal battle, this was my family, the people I had spent my life trying to help and please. The realization that they had betrayed my trust in such a huge way was still hard to stomach. I spent hours going over the documents, looking for any loopholes or inconsistencies in the paperwork that could work in my favor. My head ached from the stress, but I knew I couldn't afford to make a mistake. In the middle of all this, I received a call from my dad. His voice was hesitant when he spoke. Diana, I know you've been trying to fix things, and I don't want to make it worse, but I've been thinking about what you said. We've put you in a position where you have to fight for yourself, and I'm sorry for that, but I want to help you now. The words stung. I wanted to believe him, I really did, but I wasn't sure if I could trust them again. After all, this wasn't the first time they had come to me for help. It was the fact that they had gone behind my back to fix their problems without thinking about the consequences for me that cut the deepest. I don't know what you can do to help at this point, Dad, I replied, my voice tight with frustration. You put me in this position. You made the decision without even telling me. There was a long silence on the other end. I know, and I don't blame you for being angry, he said quietly. But I want you to know I'll do whatever it takes to make this right. I'll talk to the bank, help you get the signatures, whatever it takes. I felt the anger rising in me again, but there was something else, a small flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, they could help me clean up the mess they had made. But I wasn't going to let them off the hook easily. This was my life on the line, and I had every right to be angry. I'll handle it from here, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. But I need you to understand something, Dad. This isn't just about the loan. It's about trust. You've broken that trust, and it's going to take time for me to rebuild it. You can't just fix this with a few words. I understand, he said. I'll be patient, Diana. I know it's going to take time. We ended the call shortly after, and I sat back in my chair, feeling a mix of relief and exhaustion. The battle wasn't over, and I knew it was going to be long and difficult, but for the first time, I felt like I was starting to take control. I kept pushing forward. I met with the lawyer again the next day to go over the steps I needed to take. We started drafting letters, gathering evidence, and preparing a case against the bank. The more I worked on it, the more determined I became. I wasn't going to let my family's mistakes ruin my future. I was going to fight for what was mine. As the days turned into weeks, the process became more grueling. I spent long hours at my desk, trying to balance the demands of my work with the growing pressure of dealing with the loan. But through it all, I kept reminding myself that I had to stay strong, that this was my chance to prove to myself that I could handle whatever life threw at me. By now, my relationship with my parents had become strained. They were still offering help, but I was starting to distance myself from them emotionally. It wasn't that I didn't love them anymore, but I couldn't keep enabling their bad decisions. I had to protect myself first, and that meant setting boundaries no matter how hard it was. At the end of each day, I would sit down and reflect on how far I had come. I was no longer the scared, dependent daughter who tried to please everyone. I was someone who could stand on her own, who could fight back when needed. And I wasn't going to let my family's mistakes define me. The days grew more difficult as the reality of the situation settled in. The weight of the $390,000 loan was pressing down on me, and the pressure was beginning to feel suffocating. I had contacted the bank, gathered the evidence of the fraud, and sought legal advice, but every step felt like I was walking through a storm without an umbrella. The emotional toll was just as heavy as the financial burden. I tried to stay focused on the task at hand, but there were times when I felt like everything was slipping out of my grasp. The loan was one thing, but the emotional toll of dealing with my parents' actions was another. I couldn't escape the feelings of betrayal, the constant reminder that they had crossed a line I couldn't easily forget. Their mistake had affected my life in ways I hadn't even fully realized yet. One night, after another long day of calls and paperwork, I sat alone at my kitchen table, staring at my phone. I had just received another message from my mom, but I was reluctant to open it. Part of me wanted to keep my distance. The more I communicated with them, the more I realized how much I needed to protect my emotional well-being. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about the way they had made me feel for so many years. Like I was always expected to fix their problems, to clean up after their mistakes. I opened the message from my mom, hesitating before reading it. It was simple, but it cut deep. "I'm sorry, Diana. We've been thinking about everything. I know we hurt you. We never wanted to put you in this position. Please, let us help you fix this." I stared at the words for a while, trying to process them. It wasn't the first time my parents had apologized, but it felt different this time. They were acknowledging the damage they had done, and as much as I wanted to stay angry, part of me wanted to believe that they were truly sorry. I picked up the phone and dialed my mom's number. When she answered, her voice trembled. "Diana," she said softly, "I know we've been distant, and I understand why you're angry. I never meant for any of this to happen. I don't want to lose you." I took a deep breath, trying to steady my emotions. "I'm not sure what you want me to say, Mom. You've put me in a position where I'm left dealing with the consequences of your choices. I'm trying to fix everything, but it's not easy." "I know," she replied quietly. "But please know, we never meant to hurt you. We've made mistakes, and we want to make things right. We'll do whatever it takes to help you." The sincerity in her voice caught me off guard. For the first time in a long while, I felt like my parents were truly understanding the gravity of their actions. But that didn't mean I could just forgive them overnight. The trust had been broken, and it would take time to rebuild it. "I appreciate that, Mom," I said, my voice steady. "But this isn't just about what you want. It's about what I need to do to protect myself. I have to take control of my life again." She sighed, clearly struggling with the distance that had grown between us. "I understand, Diana. I'm not asking for you to forget everything, but I hope one day you'll find it in your heart to forgive us." "I'm not there yet," I replied honestly, "but I'm working on it. For now, I need space to figure things out. We talked for a few more minutes before I ended the call. As I put my phone down, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Part of me wanted to forgive them. I could see how much they regretted what they had done, but the other part of me couldn't ignore the fact that they had betrayed me. What I had realized through all of this was that forgiveness wasn't something that could be forced. It had to come on my own terms and in my own time. I had spent so long trying to fix their problems, and now it was time for me to focus on fixing my own life. I knew that I still had a long road ahead of me, but I was starting to feel stronger. The legal battle wasn't over, and I had a lot of work ahead of me, but I was no longer letting my parents' mistakes define me. I was building my own future, one decision at a time. As I sat back and reflected on the days that had passed, I couldn't help but feel a sense of clarity. The journey was difficult, but it was also teaching me something important. I didn't need anyone's approval or validation to be happy. I had the power to create the life I wanted, and no matter what happened with my parents, I was going to be okay. The weeks that followed were a blur of legal proceedings, meetings, and emotional ups and downs. I continued to work with the lawyer to contest the fraudulent loan, and the more we uncovered, the more I realized just how much my parents had taken advantage of my name and credit. But rather than feeling angry, I felt something else, a sense of liberation. I had been living in the shadow of their choices for far too long. For years, I had prioritized their needs over my own, hoping that one day they would see the sacrifices I had made. But now, I had learned an important lesson. I couldn't keep living for other people. I had to live for myself. The legal battles were exhausting, but I stayed focused. Slowly but surely, I managed to get the loan voided. It wasn't an easy fight, but it was a victory. My name was cleared, my credit restored, and my future, for the first time in years, was mine to control. As for my relationship with my parents, it was still strained. I wasn't sure if we could ever go back to the way things were. Trust, once broken, was hard to rebuild. But I had made my peace with that. I had done everything I could, and now it was time to let go of the anger and focus on moving forward. One evening, as I sat on my balcony watching the sunset, I realized something. I had spent so much time trying to please my parents, trying to fix their mistakes, that I had forgotten to live my own life. But now, I was finally living for myself, and that felt like freedom. I had learned to set boundaries, to prioritize my own happiness, and to stop seeking approval from people who would never truly understand me. I wasn't going to let their mistakes define me anymore. I had my own goals, my own dreams, and the strength to pursue them. That night, I called my mom. I wasn't sure if I was ready to fully forgive her or my dad, but I knew it was time to talk. We had been through so much, and despite everything, she was still my mom. "I've been thinking," I said when she answered the phone, "and I want to find a way forward. But it's going to take time. I can't just forget what happened. But maybe we can start over, one step at a time." "I understand, Diana," she said softly, "and I don't expect everything to be fixed overnight. I'm so sorry for what we did to you. I just want you to know that we love you, and we're proud of you." "I know," I replied, "and I'm starting to be proud of myself, too." We didn't talk about the past any further. We just talked about the future. For the first time in years, I felt like we were on the same page. We weren't going to forget the past, but we could choose to move forward in our own way. As I hung up the phone, I smiled to myself. I had come so far, from a daughter trying to fix everything to a woman who had learned to stand on her own. I wasn't perfect, and my family wasn't perfect, but we were learning and growing. The journey wasn't easy, but it had made me stronger, and I was finally ready to embrace the future without fear or hesitation.